case I forget, they are amazing. 6 ark openings. There are 6 ark openings on Kol Nidre. I know this because for the last 10 years or so, I've been serving as the Aliyah Gabbai on Kol Nidre and ushering those of you with Aliyahs up to the front in time for your honor. It's a job that's usually good for about 1,000 steps, if you track that sort of thing, and I usually did it in high heels. This might actually be a lot easier on my feet. Shalom, Chaverim. Chag Sameach, Good Yontef. Welcome to Adath, Israel. My name is Natalie Wolf, and I'm honored to be the president of the Adath Israel Board of Trustees. My immediate predecessor in this role, Josh Lissman, is the Aliyah Gabbai tonight. And it's probably a little easier for him since I noticed that he's wearing gym shoes. And in case you are wondering, yes, I am married to a former Adath Israel president. My husband, Scott, was president of Adath Israel 10 years ago. Like all of the former presidents of our synagogue, he is able to provide me with invaluable insight and advice. But because I live with him, I can seek his perspective whenever I need it. And since he's my husband, I can also choose to ignore him. Mostly, though, the advice and insight he gives is spot on. My family have been members of Adath Israel congregation for most of my life. My mom and dad, their parents, my dad's parents and siblings, his cousins, and many, many of my cousins were members of Adath Israel. Neither myself, nor my brother Barry, or my sister Claire became a bar or bat mitzvah here for reasons that have become lost to family memory. When I could have asked my parents why, I wasn't interested. And now that I'm interested, I can't ask them why. But I spent plenty of time here at Adath Israel, including all the holidays, even when we were in exile at Northern Hills Synagogue, so I feel comfortable enough to call myself a lifer. Over the years, I've had many identities, and some of you may know me as one of these people. Scott's wife, First Lady of the J, First Lady of Adath Israel, Freddie's, Adam's, and Sarah's mom, Gloria and Jean's daughter, and if you live in Amberley, Mrs. Vice Mayor. That one was coined by J.D. Kurtzman 11 years ago and seems to have stuck. As for myself, I prefer to think of myself as a person with big ideas looking for ways to bring them to fruition. And so I find myself serving as president of Adath Israel. Adath has a tradition that each week on Shabbat, the president of the congregation delivers announcements from the Bima. On my first Shabbat as president, I had the announcements in my hand, but I felt that I needed a way to convey to those in attendance what my presidency was going to be about and what Adath Israel was about. There had been some grumbling that we were not traditional enough, that we were becoming too lax in our kippot and talit requirements, that we weren't kosher enough, or the right kind of kosher, and that we, heaven forbid, were now a Reform congregation. How could I convey that these concerns were not only unfounded, but that Adath Israel was still the largest and strongest conservative congregation in Cincinnati? I noticed that our mission statement was printed on the back cover of the Shabbat morning program. And that's how I came to state the mission of Adath Israel from the Bima every Shabbat. Our mission statement, a single sentence that conveys not only what Adath Israel is about, but that defines who and what we aspire to be. Adath Israel is a Kehila Kadosha, a conservative Jewish community in Cincinnati that supports congregants during significant life events and in their journeys to become more involved, knowledgeable, and spiritually fulfilled Jews. This sentence is really a perfect description of who and what we are, don't you think? We are a Kehila Kadosha, a holy community. Adath Israel is not just a community, but a conservative Jewish community. So maybe like me, you grew up going to services and religious school at Adath Israel or another conservative synagogue, and you are familiar with and like the adherence to traditional halakha, the format and traditions of the prayers and observances. But with the recognition that we live in an ever-changing world and that we have the ability to change with it. So we are a group of people, a community, who all, for one reason or another, identify as conservative Jews. Adath Israel is a Kehila Kadosha that supports congregants during significant life events. Well, that part seems obvious. The kid you've been raising for 12 or 13 years is ready to become a B'nai Mitzvah. You buy some fancy invitations, send them to all of your friends and family, come to shul on the designated date, and voila, B'nai Mitzvah time. But look around you. Who are those other people in the sanctuary? The ones who didn't get a fancy invitation. You know, those other congregants. If there was a sudden snowstorm that canceled all flights and left most roads unplowed, there would still be a minyan at Adath Israel. Your kid would still become a bar or bat mitzvah. If there was a global pandemic, your Adath Israel community would still show up on Zoom to celebrate with you. This is your Kehila Kadosha, the community that is always there to support you, the community that notices if you miss one day and wants to know if everything is okay. This is the community that supports you during significant life events, whether it's acknowledging the birth of a new baby, celebrating B'nai Mitzvot, Ufrofs, and weddings, or making a Shiva minyan so you can say Kaddish. By the way, delivering the High Holiday Appeal is a significant event in my life, and I want to acknowledge all of you, my Kehila Kadosha, for being with me as I deliver it. Never in a million years, when I was a little kid at Adath Israel and my parents made us visit all of the relatives wherever they sat in the shul to say hi, which resulted in distinct looks of disapproval from Rabbi Goldfeder, could I ever have imagined I'd be president of the shul one day. Back in those days, no one could have imagined Jan Cobb, Penny Pensack, Nina Paul, or Debbie Lempert, or that any woman could be president of Adath Israel. But we are a conservative congregation, and for the last 30 years or so egalitarian, and we acknowledge the changes that living in a modern society brings. Adath Israel is a Kehila Kadosha, a conservative Jewish community in Cincinnati that supports congregants during significant life events and in their journeys to become more involved, knowledgeable, and spiritually fulfilled Jews. About a month ago, I was asked by a former neighbor and fellow congregant, what was it that kept me engaged in Adath Israel? I don't consider myself to be particularly religious. So how is it that over the years, Adath Israel has taken on a bigger role in my life? I told her that I am a lifelong learner, that I believe a person can learn anything at any time, at any age. For example, in 2002, my oldest nephew, Brent, became a bar mitzvah. His mom, my sister-in-law, Dawn, read a passage of Torah, and she didn't just read, she chanted. I could not believe it. Was this something we could do? Well, I mean, I am a pretty competitive person, and if Dawn could do it, I could certainly do it. Remember? And with that, a personal tradition was born. When each of my own children became a bar or bat mitzvah, I read a passage of Torah and used the opportunity to learn another part of the service. With help from Alan Weiner and Dara Wood, I took on learning Amar Rabbi Elazar, Kabbalat Shabbat, the Torah service, the 13 attributes, and the concluding prayers. When I said Kaddish for my dad at morning minyan, I learned how to wrap tefillin. My kids' accomplishments drove me to pursue my own. And I like to think that my bravery in attempting new things inspires my kids to do the same. I told all of this to my neighbor last month, and I'm telling you today, Adath Israel is here to support you in your own journey to become more involved, knowledgeable Jews. One of Rabbi Smolkin's stated goals, and one that I strongly support, is that of increased engagement. This year we hired an engagement rabbi, Rabbi Rand Burke, who started his tenure here at Adath Israel on July 1st, the same day that I began my term as board president. Rabbi Burke gave a wonderful drash last week, touching on many of the same exact themes that I'm talking about tonight. But this theme of engagement is so important. In 2015, Adath Israel commissioned what I would call an engagement study. This study and the resulting plan are what is referred to as Imagine Adath Israel. During the course of 10 months, more than 250 of you were surveyed in a variety of ways and asked what you wanted from your synagogue. We learned that you wanted a more warm and welcoming environment, so we set up a welcome table in the lobby. Board members began making holiday phone calls. Ushers were instructed to be friendlier when asking people to put on talit and kippah. And those in leadership positions learned to become more mindful and attentive in our interactions with congregants and potential congregants. Another thing we learned is that a very significant number of us wanted more meaningful opportunities to become involved in social justice activities. An advocacy committee was formed. It is currently chaired by Leah Marcus, and it got to work raising awareness about registering to vote, and then developed a year-long curriculum based on race relations in America called Race in America. Even during a global pandemic, this program became one of the most well-attended programs we have ever had. Our Social Action Committee, under the leadership of Trinity Johnson, is currently exploring bringing back Mitzvah Day and ways that we can make a difference in our Cincinnati community, while at the same time developing opportunities for each of us to engage with and deepen our connections to each other. And the Green Team was born, which actively ties respect for the earth with lessons from the Torah. Finally, we learned that our congregants wanted more opportunities to connect outside the walls of the synagogue. Lives are busy. The synagogue isn't always close by, but people still want that connection. The Shabbat program and Kol Kehila are back and filled with new programs. Our end-of-summer picnic party was a huge success. We've begun a wellness series where you can practice yoga here at Shul, run with the rabbi, or walk with the president. And the annual fundraiser is back. Not a barbecue this time, but a chili competition, which will be even more accessible to more entrants. If you think you've got a championship chili recipe, put May 7th on your calendar and get ready to show it off. More people are getting involved in active committees than I can remember in a long, long time, which means that more of you are having a voice in the shape and future of our synagogue. This is what engagement looks like. I began this talk with the familiar words, Shalom Chaverim, Shalom friends. Welcome to Adath Israel. Welcome to our community. And I've spent the last 14 minutes or so trying to describe what it means to be a community. Because what is a synagogue if not a community of friends? It is enshrined in our mission statement. COVID impacted nonprofits and synagogues in an unprecedented way. We could not be together, and we missed having the personal connection. Adath Israel has not been able to hold a major fundraiser in 2 years. Our budget is supported by 3 major sources of income: dues, the spring fundraiser, and your high holiday pledge. I want to take a moment to extend a personal thank you to our Shomrim and Bonim. 25% of our community is supported by our highest level of supporters, those who contribute annually at the Shomrim Bonim level of dues. This is an amazing mitzvah, and we are so grateful for your support. At Adath Israel, we are not naive. We read the studies about the state of synagogue membership and the articles that posit the question of how to set dues, or whether we should even have dues for that matter. We understand that in today's world, and not just the Jewish world, there are people who view synagogue membership in a transactional manner. They ask themselves, what am I getting from the shul? And based on the response, they decide whether to stay or to go. For 2 years, while we were navigating the pandemic, the synagogue, unfortunately, did not always fare well in the answer to that question. Because if membership in a synagogue is transactional, like a gym membership, for example, and you are measuring its value based on how many times you come to shul, then it's easy to drop your membership. But in my family, we see ourselves as equal partners in synagogue life. We don't ask what the synagogue is doing for us. We know that the benefits of synagogue membership are often unmeasurable. We know that the synagogue is here for us when we need it, whether it's for a baby naming, bar or bat mitzvah, wedding or funeral, whether it's for a yahrzeit reminder or a holiday phone call. The synagogue is here, whether we think we need it or not. And it's not just a one-sided contract. The synagogue needs us. We count, and we are counted. We are a holy community, not just a community. During my and my husband's 25 years of living in Amberley Village, Scott, myself, and then our kids, when they became old enough, were called on countless times to come to the synagogue and help make a minyan for a fellow congregant saying Kaddish. In fact, tonight, as soon as I walked in the door, I was pulled into the chapel to help a fellow congregant who was saying Kaddish. We never hesitated when asked. We know that that is the implied contract. We are here for each other. We are a Kehila Kadosha, a holy community of Jews. I'm going to ask you now to take a look at the pledge card you received when you came inside this evening. And if you didn't receive your card, or you're joining us online, it will be mailed to you this week. And because we're a conservative congregation and we live in a modern world, you will also have the opportunity to pledge online. We are so thrilled to be back in shul, and we hope that you are too. We've missed seeing your faces in 3 dimensions. Zoom is nice, but there's nothing like being together in person. So please take a moment and joining us, me and Scott, in making a generous pledge to Adath Israel. You will also notice on your pledge card a separate tab for legacy gift. This is for Create Your Jewish Legacy, or CYJL. This is not an either-or tab. Legacy giving is the best way to ensure that future generations of Cincinnati Jews can be a part of our synagogue. Making a legacy commitment was one of the easiest decisions Scott and I have ever made. For us, it was not a question of will we, but why wouldn't we? So my request is that, in addition to your high holiday pledge, this year you turn down 2 tabs. Please join the 118 families who have committed to this program at Adath Israel already. Turn down the tab for Legacy Gift, and Rebecca Goldwasser or someone on her committee will contact you to have a no-pressure conversation about legacy giving and why we support it so strongly. Adath Israel is almost 175 years old. Some of you, like myself, have been members of Adath for our entire lives. 4 of Adath Israel's 5 presidents have served during my lifetime. Your commitment to legacy giving helps to ensure that Adath Israel will still be here long into the future, doing what it does best, being here for all of us. Thank you. Gemar Chatima Tova, Shana Tova. And at this time, I'd like to invite the ushers, members of the Executive Committee, of the Board of Trustees, and Kathy Haas to collect the pledge cards. Thank you.